There is a rhythm to the preparation for a global war. It is not the rhythm of diplomatic speeches, and it is not the rhythm of political press conferences. It is a deep, mechanical, seismic rhythm that vibrates through the concrete floors of massive fabrication halls. It is the sound of thousands of tons of high-yield steel being cut, the blinding flash of automated welding arcs, and the precise, terrifying orchestration of nuclear engineering. For the last 30 years, that rhythm in the Western world had slowed to a barely audible pulse. We built our most lethal weapons at a boutique, artisanal pace. We built one nuclear submarine every 3, 4, or sometimes 5 years. We treated the ultimate instruments of national survival as if they were luxury yachts, constructed slowly to preserve a minimum baseline of jobs while politicians bragged about the peacetime dividend. Meanwhile, in the shipyards of Shanghai and Dalian, the Chinese Communist Party established a very different rhythm. They began churning out guided missile destroyers, cruisers, and submarines at a relentless, terrifying cadence, launching the equivalent of the entire French Navy every 4 years. Beijing looked at the West and assumed that our heavy industrial machine was dead. They assumed that the United Kingdom, specifically, was a declining, culturally exhausted European relic that would never again mass-produce the hard power necessary to shape global events. They were catastrophically wrong. Deep in the industrial north of England, a massive financial and physical hammer has just been dropped. The United Kingdom is currently executing a staggering £6 billion capital injection into its defense industrial base. The goal is not just to build a few submarines. The goal is to resurrect the Cold War cadence. The United Kingdom is completely re-engineering its sovereign shipyards to achieve an aggressive, continuous build manufacturing rhythm that is currently terrifying strategic planners in authoritarian capitals around the globe. They are preparing to forge one new nuclear-powered attack submarine every 18 months. This is the end of the retreat. This is the rebirth of the Anglosphere arsenal. And it proves that the European wing of the Western Alliance is physically gearing up for great power conflict. Welcome to Doctrine of War. Today we are taking you inside the industrial resurrection of the Royal Navy and exposing the brutal mathematics of submarine production. Here is the thesis for this episode. You cannot deter a mass-production adversary with a boutique defense industry. In the 21st century, deterrence requires mass, it requires momentum, and it requires a relentless drumbeat of steel entering the water. If you are beginning to understand why the true balance of geopolitical power is not decided by politicians in Geneva, but by the nuclear engineers and pipefitters in Derby and Barrow-in-Furness, hit that like button and subscribe to Doctrine of War. We bypass the mainstream media's obsession with domestic politics to bring you the unvarnished, kinetic realities of how the free world actually builds the machines that keep you safe. Your support ensures we can keep delivering this level of uncompromising strategic analysis. For too long, the narrative has been that the United States is the sole industrial guarantor of the Pacific. But as American shipyards struggle under the weight of massive delays, the entire strategic architecture of the AUKUS agreement has pivoted. We are going to break down this £6 billion hammer, the staggering physical expansion of the shipyards that are pouring millions of tons of concrete right now. We are going to analyze the 18-month war rhythm, why this specific mathematical cadence is the ultimate nightmare for the Chinese Navy. We will look at the stalled Virginia lines, and how British heavy industry is stepping into the breach to bail out the American bottleneck. And finally, we will explore the global force multiplier, how a submarine forged in the cold rain of England becomes the apex predator patrolling the tropical waters of the South China Sea. Let us begin by looking at the sheer, terrifying scale of the infrastructure being built in the United Kingdom today. The reawakening of Barrow-in-Furness. To understand the magnitude of this industrial shift, you must first understand the geography of British naval supremacy. At the very edge of the Irish Sea in the county of Cumbria, lies the town of Barrow-in-Furness. This is not just a town, it is a sovereign strategic asset. It is a company town where generations of families have dedicated their lives to the unforgiving, microscopic tolerances of submarine construction. At the center of Barrow sits the Devonshire Dock Hall, operated by BAE Systems. It is a structure so massive it dominates the skyline, a cathedral of modern manufacturing where the current Astute-class attack submarines and the Dreadnought-class ballistic missile submarines are taking shape. But the existing facility, as massive as it is, was designed for the slow, methodical pace of the post-Cold War era. It was not designed to support the voracious appetite of the AUKUS agreement, nor the urgent existential requirement of the Royal Navy to rapidly regenerate its own combat power. Recognizing this critical bottleneck, the UK Ministry of Defence, in lockstep with BAE Systems, authorised a staggering capital injection as part of a broader £6 billion initiative. They are not just drawing up blueprints for the future SS and AUKUS, they are physically altering the landscape of the United Kingdom. Barrow-in-Furness is currently undergoing the largest expansion of its facilities in half a century. We are talking about the pouring of millions of tons of heavily reinforced concrete. We are talking about the construction of massive new fabrication halls, specialized painting and anechoic tile application facilities, and extended wet docks. The scale of the SS and AUKUS is driving this expansion. This new submarine will be significantly larger than the current Astute class. It is projected to be a 10,000-ton Leviathan. It will be longer, wider, and packed with vertical launch systems (VLS), capable of firing deep-strike hypersonic weapons and Tomahawk cruise missiles. Moving, welding, and assembling sections of a 10,000-ton pressure hull made of specialized high-yield steel requires heavy-lift cranes and environmental controls that simply did not exist at scale a decade ago. By pouring this concrete today, the United Kingdom is laying the physical foundation for a fleet that could number up to 12 SS and AUKUS boats for the Royal Navy alone, cementing Barrow as the premier center of heavy naval manufacturing in Europe. It is a brutal, unmistakable signal to adversaries that Britain is not a declining power. It is a heavily industrialized fortress, the atomic heart in Derby. But building the steel pressure hull is only half the battle. The true bottleneck, the absolute most complex and highly classified component of any nuclear submarine program, is the propulsion plant. You can build a beautiful hull in record time, but if you do not have a nuclear reactor to put inside it, you simply have a very expensive hollow steel tube. The heart of the British nuclear fleet beats in the city of Derby, at the Rolls-Royce submarines facility known as Rainsway. Rolls-Royce is the sole custodian of the United Kingdom's naval nuclear propulsion capability. They design, manufacture, and test the pressurized water reactors that give British submarines their infinite range and terrifying acoustic stealth. For the SS and AUKUS program, Rolls-Royce is developing the PWR-3, or a heavily evolved PWR-3+ variant. This reactor is a marvel of atomic engineering. It is designed to never require refueling for the entire 30-year lifespan of the submarine. It is safer, significantly more powerful to support the massive electrical demands of future directed energy weapons and advanced sensors, and crucially, it is infinitely quieter than legacy systems. But building these reactors is an incredibly slow, painstaking process. To achieve the 18-month drumbeat required by the new strategic reality, the output of the Rainsway facility had to be radically accelerated. The £6 billion hammer struck Derby with incredible force. Rolls-Royce is currently executing a plan to literally double the size of the Rainsway site. This expansion is unprecedented in modern British history. It involves the construction of vast new manufacturing and testing facilities designed specifically to handle the highly radioactive, hyper-classified components of the nuclear steam-raising plant. Furthermore, Rolls-Royce is embarking on a massive recruitment drive, adding over 1,000 new highly cleared nuclear engineers, physicists, and specialized machinists to their workforce. This is the ultimate commitment. You do not double the size of your sovereign nuclear reactor manufacturing base unless you are preparing for a generational, systemic conflict. The expansion at Derby guarantees that when the massive steel hull sections are ready in Barrow, the atomic heart of the apex predator will be waiting to be installed, perfectly on schedule. The death of the peacetime dividend. To truly appreciate the terror that the 18-month metric strikes into the hearts of Chinese naval planners, we must look at the historical context of the peacetime dividend and why it was a strategic catastrophe for the West. Following the fall of the Berlin Wall in 1991, the overriding philosophy in Western capitals was that history had ended. The era of massive state-on-state industrial warfare was deemed obsolete. The defense budgets of the US and the UK were gutted. In the realm of submarine construction, this led to a philosophy of minimum sustaining rate. Governments deliberately slowed down the procurement of new submarines to the absolute bare minimum required to keep the shipyards from going bankrupt. Instead of building submarines to overwhelm an adversary, they built one submarine every 3 to 5 years simply to maintain the engineering skill base. This boutique manufacturing mindset treated nuclear submarines like handcrafted hypercars. It resulted in exquisite, highly capable platforms, but it completely destroyed the economies of scale. Supply chains withered. Forging companies that made specialized hull valves went out of business because they only received an order once half a decade. This glacial pace became the accepted norm. Adversaries looked at this and laughed. They realized that if they could sink a Western submarine in combat, it would take the West half a decade to replace it. The West was mathematically incapable of fighting a war of attrition. The £6 billion investment and the new strategic mandate from the UK Ministry of Defence violently terminates that era. The peacetime dividend is dead, buried under the millions of tons of concrete currently being poured in Barrow and Derby. The 18-month war rhythm. The new mandate is clear, uncompromising, and mathematically brutal. Achieve a continuous build rhythm of one new nuclear-powered attack submarine every 18 months. Why is an 18-month drumbeat so terrifying? Because it represents the transition from artisanal crafting to relentless assembly line mass production. Building a 10,000-ton nuclear submarine takes millions of man-hours and several years from the cutting of the first steel to the final commissioning. An 18-month delivery cadence does not mean they build a submarine in 18 months. It means they have optimized the shipyard so heavily that multiple submarines are in different stages of construction simultaneously, operating on a massive, perfectly synchronized conveyor belt of doom. As the reactor compartment is being lowered into boat number 1, the pressure hull of boat number 2 is being welded together, the internal modules of boat number 3 are being outfitted with electronics, and the raw steel for boat number 4 is arriving at the fabrication hall. Every 18 months, like clockwork, the massive doors of the Devonshire Dock Hall open, and a new, undetectable apex predator slides into the water. This rhythm forces the supply chain to expand and stabilize. It guarantees contracts for thousands of secondary suppliers, driving down costs and ensuring that spare parts are always flowing. But most importantly, the 18-month rhythm completely destroys the strategic calculus of the People's Liberation Army Navy. China's entire anti-access/area denial, A2/AD, strategy is built on the premise that they can inflict losses on Western forces faster than the West can replace them. When the United Kingdom demonstrates the capability to pump out a hyper-lethal Tomahawk-armed SSN every 18 months, it proves that the Royal Navy is continuously regenerating its combat power. It proves that the West can absorb casualties and immediately backfill the line. It proves that a war of attrition against the Anglosphere is unwinnable, because the British industrial machine will relentlessly churn out the very weapons designed to sink the Chinese fleet, faster than Beijing can track them. The stalled Virginia lines. The aggressiveness of the British industrial resurgence becomes even more stark and strategically vital, when contrasted directly with the current crisis gripping the United States. For the past several years, Washington has been forced to confront a terrifying reality. The American submarine industrial base is broken. The two nuclear-certified shipyards in the U.S., General Dynamics Electric Boat in Groton and Huntington Ingalls in Newport News, are buckling under the immense pressure of simultaneously building the Columbia-class ballistic missile submarines and the Virginia-class attack submarines. The U.S. Navy has determined that it must build 2.33 Virginia-class submarines a year to meet its own global requirements and to fulfill the AUKUS Pillar 1 obligation of selling up to 5 boats to Australia in the 2030s. Right now, despite billions in emergency funding, the American yards are struggling to hit a production rate of 1.3 submarines a year. The entire Virginia-class program is facing a staggering, highly publicized cumulative delay of 417 months. When these numbers were released, propagandists in Beijing celebrated. They pushed the narrative that the United States was a hollow superpower, incapable of delivering on its promises. They heavily promoted the idea that the AUKUS agreement was doomed to fail because Australia was relying on an American supply chain that was currently choking on its own backlog. If AUKUS were a bilateral agreement solely between the US and Australia, Beijing's assessment might be accurate. The delay in American shipyards would be a single point of failure that could leave the Indo-Pacific exposed during the most dangerous decade of the 21st century. But Beijing's celebration is dangerously premature, because they failed to understand the three-headed architecture of the alliance. The ultimate AUKUS insurance policy. This is exactly where the strategic genius of the trilateral AUKUS pact reveals itself, and where the 18-month war rhythm of the United Kingdom becomes the ultimate failsafe. The British industrial base is stepping directly into the breach. As the American lines stall, the UK lines are accelerating with lethal intent. The SSN AUKUS design is fundamentally a British-led evolution. It utilizes the British hull design, the British acoustic stealth architecture, and the British Rolls-Royce nuclear reactor. By pouring £6 billion into Barrow and Derby, the UK is ensuring that the final, enduring solution for the alliance is absolutely bulletproof. The United Kingdom is not a distant, secondary partner in this endeavor. They are the physical guarantor of the Pacific strategy. If the American political system paralyzes, or if the Groton shipyard simply cannot catch up to its backlog, and the US is forced to reduce the number of Virginia-class submarines it can sell to Australia, the alliance does not collapse. It simply shifts its weight. The massive industrial momentum generated in the UK ensures that the blueprints, the reactor technology and the manufacturing protocols for the SS and AUKUS are completed on schedule, or even ahead of schedule. This allows the sovereign Australian shipyard in Osborne, South Australia, to immediately begin construction of the SS and AUKUS, utilizing the fully validated British engineering package. The 18-month cadence at Barrow proves to the world that Britain has the capacity to carry the weight of the alliance. It proves that the Anglosphere is not reliant on a single point of failure. We have built structural redundancy into our grand strategy. The United Kingdom is bailing out the American bottleneck by ensuring that no matter what happens in the shipyards of Connecticut, the apex predator will be born, it will be armed, and it will be deployed, projecting power to the Pacific. Why does a submarine built in the freezing rain of northern England matter to the geopolitical balance of the South China Sea? Why does the 18-month drumbeat at Barrow-in-Furness strike fear into the admirals of the PLA Navy? Because in the 21st century, geography has been conquered by nuclear propulsion, and the Royal Navy is no longer a regional defense force. Every single SS and AUKUS that slides out of the Devonshire dock hall is a global force multiplier. When a new submarine is commissioned, it does not simply patrol the Irish Sea. It is immediately integrated into the global posture of the Western Alliance. This brings us to the operational reality of Submarine Rotational Force West, SRF West. As the British industrial base churns out new submarines at its aggressive 18-month cadence, it frees up existing highly capable Astute-class submarines to be permanently forward deployed to the Indo-Pacific. The UK has already committed to maintaining a continuous nuclear submarine presence at HMAS Stirling in Western Australia. This is the manifestation of the global force multiplier. A submarine forged in Barrow is loaded with heavyweight spearfish torpedoes, dives into the deep water of the Atlantic, sprints silently at 30 knots without ever needing to surface, and arrives at HMAS Stirling in a matter of weeks. From that untouchable sanctuary in Western Australia, the British submarine can relentlessly patrol the vital choke points of the Indonesian archipelago, the Sunda, Lombok and Malacca Straits. It can project power deep into the Philippine Sea and the South China Sea, operating as an invisible, highly lethal vanguard. Every 18 months, as a new submarine joins the fleet, the density of this undersea wall increases. The Royal Navy's ability to maintain multiple submarines simultaneously on station in the Pacific grows exponentially with every new hull that enters the water. The borderless armada. The true terror for authoritarian regimes is not just the submarines themselves, it is the total, seamless integration of the alliance that operates them. The SS and AUKUS is the ultimate chimera. It possesses a British reactor, an American combat system, and will eventually be built by Australian steel. It represents the death of national silos. When a British SS and AUKUS is patrolling off the coast of Taiwan, it is not fighting alone. It is sharing real-time acoustic data with American P-8 Poseidon maritime patrol aircraft and Australian Hobart-class destroyers. If the British submarine expends its payload of Tomahawk missiles, it does not have to sail back to the UK. It can pull into an American naval base in Guam or an Australian base in Perth, and be seamlessly rearmed with identical, interchangeable munitions by Allied sailors. This is a borderless war machine. For Beijing, preparing to fight the United States was a daunting but mathematically calculable challenge. Preparing to fight a deeply integrated, interchangeable armada of three wealthy, technologically supreme nations, whose industrial bases are deliberately backing each other up, is a strategic nightmare. The £6 billion hammer dropping in Barrow and Derby is the sound of the West waking up. The peacetime dividend was a comfortable illusion, but it has been discarded. By committing to the aggressive, relentless drumbeat of one nuclear submarine every 18 months, the United Kingdom has proven that the European wing of the Anglosphere is physically, financially, and industrially geared up for great power conflict. They are mass-producing the apex predators of the deep, and they are deploying them exactly where they are needed most. The Cold War cadence has returned. And this time the target is in the Pacific. Thanks for watching Doctrine of War. Do you believe the UK industrial base can truly sustain this 18-month rhythm, or will they eventually fall victim to the same supply chain delays plaguing the United States? Let us know your tactical assessment in the comments below. Stay sharp, stay relentless, and we'll see you in the next one.